In this video, we will be continuing on the beginner's guide to SDL2 in the Go language. If you're just starting out with this video, you'll need to go to github.com programming rainbow beginner's guide to SDL2 in Go. You'll need to clone that repository. You'll need to move inside the directory, and since this is the 6th video, we will be working with the code that we left off with in the 5th video. So if you go into the 5th video right here and grab the main.go, you can copy that into the top level directory and you will be where we are in this video. Let me just show where we left off with in the last video. So yeah, there we go. So we have this true type font that we created as a surface, converted it to texture, got a rectangle, and now we are moving it around the screen and we're checking collisions with the edge. We still can change the background color, all that we want. We still have the title up here, and we can still close it. So in this video, we are going to be adding a player sprite, and we're going to be moving it with a different method. So we already know how to load an image to a texture. We've already done that with the background before. So let's just start out doing that first. So we have two images here. We have background and we have the load plugin. Now we did, or the Go logo. So we did use the Go logo earlier in a previous video to load the window icon, but now we're going to actually use it as a player sprite. So just like we did with the background up here, we're going to add another sprite. So I'm just going to add it, I guess, below what we were working with before. So this one I'm going to call it Sprite, and we're going to have an image. This will be a pointer to an SDL texture. Okay, and we already know that we want it to be displayed correctly on the screen, so we are going to need a rectangle. So we'll have a sprite rect, and this is just an SDL rect. And that will probably be good enough for the moment. Okay, so we're just going to do the exact same thing that we did when we loaded our background texture right here. I'm just going to grab this. It's going to be the exact same. I'll just go down to the last line here and add it in. And of course, it's not called background. It's called a sprite. And the image is going to be the Go logo. Okay. And it's the same error message. Now up here, we were getting the width and the height from a rectangle from the surface. And I said there was another way to do it. We could query a texture. So that's what we're going to do with this one. Since we already have this loaded as a texture, and before I forget, I'm going to add the code to unload it. So it's this exact same right here. And then we'll look at querying the texture. Okay, so this is Sprite. Okay, so that's going to load and unload our image, and we can display it down here. Render, copy, it's the exact same. And we need this sprite image. And the source will be nil. We'll use the entire source. And the destination is going to be a rect, but we don't have, yeah, we do have a rect. So I'm going to put it in, but it's not populated yet. So I'm not going to display this. We're going to keep working. Okay, so I'm not going to start it up yet. We haven't populated our rect yet. And this is a rect, not an image, sorry. Okay, so before we can display this, we need to populate this rect, because right now we don't have a width and the height, so I don't think it'll even show anything. So there is it's going to be query texture, right here, a query, and it's query. And I did open up the actual, so this is a method on a texture. So this would be .query to the Sprite image, yeah. But I just want to open up, because it doesn't really have much information here. I just want to open up the SDL for it. So this takes in a texture. Now this is the documentation for the CSDL. But we can get, this is giving us different bits of information. So format, basically we're passing in things and it's populating them. So format we don't care about. So we're going to leave that as null in C, and that's going to be nil in Go. Access, we also don't care about that, so it's also going to be nil. And what we're going to do is we're going to pass in a pointer to width and height so they can be populated. So if we go look back here, we have this format. Again, we don't care about it, so it's going to be nil. Access, nil. And then we have the width and the height. And this is what's being returned. Okay, so we're going to say ignore, ignore. That's going to be our rect width, our rect height, and we'll check the error. Well, this is something that can error, so we're going to check if it errors. Okay, so it looks a little different, but it's doing the same thing that the C version is doing. So I'm going to go back up to load media right here. So we have it here, and now this function is going to be returning all kinds of stuff. I'm going to still wrap it in an if. So again, the first two things we don't care about. So I'm going to use an underscore because we don't, they're not anything that we're looking for. And then we actually want we're returning a width and a height. So we can populate those straight into our sprite rect W and our sprite rect H. That's our width. And then G, sprite rect height. So that will populate those. That's what it's returning. And then we have our error. And so again, this is a method on the texture. So we have a G sprite image and its query. And then we are checking the error. Okay. And this is, if an error occurs, we already know what we're doing. We're doing this right here. Or we're just going to say error querying texture. So just change the loading to querying. So we have error querying texture. And again, we're ignoring the format and the access. We just want the width and the height. So this is returning all 5 of these items. We're populating error, we're populating width and height from this query. And this is something that can fail, so we're checking the failure. Whereas these right here, we're just setting them directly. Okay, so that's given us a rect. So now we should be able to display our sprite, player sprite. Okay, there it is. There's the gopher. Okay, but we want this gopher to move, and I want to control it this time. The SDL is just doing its own thing. It's moving around the screen, bouncing off the walls. But this one I want to control with the arrow keys and the ASWD keys. And we're not going to do that the way that we have been. So if we look at our game loop, this game loop is looking for events. Those are key events that happen. So say I press the H key. The time that it takes for me to press the H key and then release the H key could be, let's say, 5 frames. When it's down, it could be down for 5 frames before I release it. But this will be seen as a singular down event and a singular up event. So even though this may have happened for 5 frames or 10 frames or something, this is going to be one down event and one up event. And the way we're checking events right now is we're only checking the down. So it'll be one down event. And what's really kind of annoying about this is if I were to hold H down, it would just be one event, but then the keyboard would start doing a repeat where it would start repeating. And I don't want my movement to happen this way. See, if I go up here and I'm going to press H, and you're going to see one H, and then you're going to start to see looping H's. See that? There's a delay, and then it starts looping in it. I do not want my movement happening like that. That doesn't actually repeat every frame, for one, and also there's a delay. So I don't want to check for an event loop. What I want to check for is a keyboard state. So we need to actually get the state of the keyboard so we can check keys to see what position those keys are in at the current time, not what event has happened with them, but what just state that they're in. So the way we do this is with the, we need an array. We're going to use this get keyboard state, and this is going to turn us an array of uint8s. This array represents the entire keyboard. And I'm going to open up the C version of the documentation for this. So if I pass null in here, we won't have to worry about this in the Go version, but if I were to pass null in here, I get a pointer to an internally managed SDL array that it represents the state of the keyboard. This is not something I manage. This is managed for me by SDL. So this is not a heap allocated thing that I have to deal with. But anyway, so I have this array. And what I can do is I can index into the array with SDL scan codes. We've already seen these scan codes before. And just to refresh, here are the scan codes. And for us, the SDL would be lowercase SDL and a dot, and then the scan code. But it's the same. So these scan codes can be used to index. So say I'm checking the scan code 0, which would be the number 0. It's going to tell me, is this key down, which would be a 1, or is it up, which would be a 0? So it's going to tell me, is it in the down state or is it in the up state? It's not telling me any events that have happened. I don't care about events. I just want to know what state it's in. If it's in the down state, I want something to happen every single frame that it's in the down state. So we need this pointer to an array, and then we're going to index into it. So in the Go, the way it looks like here is we're going to use this function get keyboard state, and it's going to return a pointer to an array. We're going to hold on to this pointer, but we don't have to do anything with managing it. I don't know this one. This is still an SDL managed, but Go may be managing. It's nothing to do with us. We're not managing it. So we don't have to worry about that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another member in the game struct that's going to hold on to this array for me. And we'll call this key state. Okay, it's just all lowercase in this one. It's not key with a capital S. It's just key state. And this is just an array of uint8s. Okay, they're not booleans because boolean it's a newer idea in C, so they're just using uint8s, which are just 1 byte. Kind of the smallest thing you can do. Okay, so and then now we need to set this to that internal array, the internal one. So we need to go down to, so after we've set the icon, we can just use that function, that get keyboard state function, to populate our keyboard. So this is G key state. Okay, so this is going to return the pointer. It's returning the array. This is just the array. Now this array gets updated every time. I don't know if it's mentioned here. Okay. So it says a snapshot. This is sort of true. What it is it's a pointer to this internal array, and it gets updated every time you do an SDL pump event or every time you do this. Where is it? It can be a pump event, or it can do a pull event. It gets updated either way, and we're already doing this pull event, so we have no problem. It's going to be updated for us. Okay, so that's basically about it for setting that up. We're just declaring that we have this array up here. We're declaring the array, and then we're just populating that pointer to it right here. Now we can index into it. So we have already got the rect. So I'm going to make a new method right here where we did the update text. This one I'm going to say update sprite. So this is G, whoops, game, update, Sprite. Okay, so what we want to do with this one is we just want to start checking if the key that we care about is pressed, and then do something based on that. So the way that we can do it, we can just wrap it in an if statement. I'm not going to do an if else or anything like that. It's going to be purely an if statement, and you'll see why. So we got this G keyboard state, and then we're going to index in it. And the scan codes, there's simply a left. There's a left, there's a right, an up, and a down. And there's also an A, SWD. So we're going to use those. So here's our scan code 1. I'm just going to say left. Okay, that's the left one. Now I can check 2. I can say is left equal to 1. If it's 0, if this is 0, this is going to be in the up position. If it's 1, it's in the down position. Okay, so if I use a logical OR on this, I can check another key. Besides left, I could check a key, because if I use ASWD, A is my left. So again, I do SDL scan, and I'm just going to pick with the first one and then change it to an A. Okay, so I'm saying if the left key is pressed or if the A key is pressed. Okay, if either one of these are equal to 1, which means they're pressed, we're going to do something. And what are we going to do? Well, we're going to move sprite rect.x we're going to decrement it because we needed to move left, and we're going to do it by sprite velocity. Now I haven't created sprite velocity yet, so let's go up here and do that. So I have sprite image text rect, and let's do right here sprite vel, and I'm not going to do this sprite xvel yvel. We don't need that at all. We're just going to have a vel, and this is going to be an int 32 because it's interfacing with the rect. And down here we're going to set it. Now I'm going to make this one a little faster. I'm going to set it to 5. Right, no, sprite velocity. Say equal to 5. So now we have our velocity set up. I'm going to save this real quick. Now let's go down to where we were right here. So this would be G sprite rect dot x. I'm decrementing it because I want to move it left. Left is decrementing, as in the number is getting smaller, and right, the number would be getting bigger. G dot sprite vel. So that's it. I'm just decrementing it by sprite velocity. So if I just yank this right here, and then if I change the left to right, and the A to D, I can just increment this. Now I should be able to move left to right. However, I haven't called this yet. So what I'm going to do is go down in the game loop. Remember, we're doing checking events. We're updating game state, and then we're drawing. So right here where we're updating game state, I'm going to do g.update sprite, and that will make sure that that method is called every frame. Okay, so I should be able to move left, yes, move right. Now the reason why I put these on ifs instead of an if else is because if it was an if else, I would move left when left was pressed, I would move right when right was pressed. But if I pressed both, I would move left. I'm pressing both now and I'm not moving. That's because they're on their own if statement. If it was an if else, it would choose the first branch. But since they're both ifs, they cancel each other. It actually moves twice every frame, so it ends up back where it started. Okay? And I can do the AD, that as well. And if I use right and D, I don't go twice as fast, I go the same speed, or A and left. But if I put A and right, I'm not going to move. Everything's working correctly. Okay, so let's do the the up and down. So this is going to be the exact same. Just going to yank this whole thing. And this is going to be up. And this will be W. And I'm decrementing the Y. And now this one is down. And this is S. And I am incrementing the Y. Okay. So down, up, right, left. We got D, S, A, W. And we can still change the color. We got a little gopher moving around the screen. That's awesome. We could get complicated and change the direction he's looking, but I'm not going to do that for this. This is a simple tutorial. But it would be copy X, I think, instead of copy. Render copy X instead of render copy. You can look that one up on your own. And you will need a direction, which would be a flipped versus not flipped. There would be constants. Just off the top of my head, I would Google them real quick and find out. Okay, so that's moving everything around. Did I change it? I did not change the player sprite yet. Okay, so up here at the top, we need to set the title to player sprite. There's player sprite. Okay, so let's walk through what we've done. We haven't added anything here at all. We've just changed this to player sprite. Down here, we've already seen these before. So we're adding a sprite image, which is a SDL texture. We have a sprite rect, which is an SDL rect. Remember, this one is managed. So we do have our destroy happening down, where is it? Down here. Sprite image destroy and sprite image set to nil. So we do have our sprite image, our rect. We have a single velocity, which is a 32-bit int. We have this key state array, which is an array of uint8s. And that's the key state array, we set that up with SDL get keyboard state right here. And that we're just holding on to that. And that automatically gets updated every time we do the pull event for our events that we're checking. So it's always up to date for us. And we are doing the standard way that we loaded the background before with the load texture that loads the image directly to a texture. And then we're using this new method or new function. No, it is a method, sorry. The sprite image query. And this, don't care about the first two items. It's returning the format and the access, but we do care about the width and the height, and we're storing them in our sprite rect width and sprite rect height. And we are capturing the error and checking that. So that gives us a populated rectangle. And then down here, we have a new method where we're using the key state array to check the state, what state each key is in. And we're checking 2. You don't have to check 2. I just thought it's nice to set up the ASW key, D keys, and the arrow keys. So that's why I'm using this logical OR if either one of these is pressed. And the way that we're checking the equality is just 1. It's going to be 0 or 1 for these. That's what these can be. And we're just using the sprite velocity to either decrement or increment the X and the Y. And each of them are in their own if statement, so they can be pressed simultaneously, and they'll either cancel each other out or make them move diagonally or however they work. So there's no if-else statement here. These are all if statements. And this method, this game method, is being called right here. In this kind of update zone in the middle here, we have first we're checking events, we're updating state, and then we're drawing. So we have our update sprite right here, and nothing else down here. So that is how to load a player sprite, how to move it with the actual, with the keyboard state instead of using events. So you get smooth movement. And that is also how you query a texture to get the width and the height. And that's going to be about it. So I hope you enjoyed that. Hope that was educational or entertaining. And thanks for watching. Bye.